It's floor day!
We don't really know how to finish the end off.
It doesn't fit.
But yes! Everything takes longer than you think it will.
Hey there, we are Jess, Greg, and Maya. Together we are self-converting our 2017 Ford Transit into our tiny home on wheels. Last week you watched us struggle to install swivel seats. This week we will be doing our subfloor. Stick around to see how many different tools we use to cut our insulation.
Well, good morning. Before we get to our video, I want to take a moment to talk to you about subfloor design. There are a bunch of different ways you can do it, and I want to tell you the way we chose to do it and why. So there's two main parts to subfloor. There's the insulation and the top layer. So for the insulation, we decided to use 1.5" rigid foam board coupled with support beams every 16 inches because the foam board is pre-cut for that. For our top layer, we chose to use 2 full pieces of plywood in the center where you'll be walking and put our seams on the outer edges where they'll be covered up with cabinets. This is good so you're not walking on seams, and it allows you to use 3 pieces of plywood instead of 4. So with that, let's get to today's picture show.
We started with 2x4s and we cut them in half.
See, the thing is, a 2x4 isn't really 2x4 inches. It's really more like 1.5 by 3.5 inches.
And that was so that we would have boards that were exactly 1.5 inches thick. What we really need is 1.5 inches to be the exact same thickness as the foam that we got.
Nailed it.
Good?
Yeah.
This one comes all the way to the end because this area here is going to be our kitchen. In here we're going to have our fridge, our gray water, and then some sort of vertical pantry. Some sort of vertical pantry with like spices and dry goods.
And then that's all the steps gonna be right there. We took less than half of the step away, but it'll be usable space. Well, first test piece of our subfloor, and it's looking pretty good. Our plan with the 2x4s being 1.5" seems to be working. It's pretty level. We just need to repeat this about 12 more times.
It doesn't fit.
But pretty close. One tech tip we found, using a drywall knife works really well on the insulation. It's messy, but it makes a cleaner cut. We don't really know how to finish the end off. That's what we're trying to figure out right now. We ultimately decided to add a second piece of wood to the end and cut it to the curve of the van.
If you are cutting foam and you have a jigsaw, that is the superior way to cut. Don't use an X-Acto knife, don't use a drywall knife.
Using a drywall knife?
Use a jigsaw. So Ford put the spare tire access right here, so we had to notch out a little hole so that if we ever need our spare tire, we can get to it.
With all of our support pieces cut and test fit, it was time to give them a quick sand, followed by a coat of mold and mildew resistant primer. Once everything was painted up, it was time to do the final install. To promote better adhesion, we decided to put a bunch of weight on the foam overnight so it could dry.
First up, we're gonna take our first sheet of plywood and measure it to one of our floor supports so that we can screw it down into it. So we're gonna measure this one first, cut it, and then measure the next one that's gonna go in front of me to the back of the van. And then the last part will be to add our pieces around the outside where we're gonna have to do other unique cuts. Now that we've got our centerpieces done, we're gonna go around the edges and use our template and this fancy contour gauge.
Do you need this tool? No. Who doesn't love a new tool though?
Greg is using every possible chance during this build to purchase a new tool. So we're gonna use this and go around the edges and finish our subfloor.
Most of you won't have that massive dent that you will need to account for. If you were lucky enough to buy a brand new Transit, they're actually identical, so you can do one side and mirror that on the other side, but our wheel wells are so beat up, we have to do them individually. All in all, not bad. We're gonna take a little more off right here. We're gonna round this corner, and that should do it. The dented up wheel well looks kind of funny, but I think it's gonna fit pretty good. Let's see if it fits. Yes. Mint. Well, welcome to day 2 of the floor project. Yesterday we got the center section in and one of the more complex side pieces. It's just me in the shop today. So I am just gonna try to do one of the easier side pieces with just 2 little cutouts rather than attempting a wheel weld. At least to start, we'll see how far I get today. Let me give you a recap on how I'm going to address this little notch out here. The first thing I did was cut my board to size. I'm then gonna take my speed square. I'm gonna put a mark on either end. After that, we're gonna go back to using these fancy things. You just slowly push it in. Then I pull over my board. I line up the center marks, trace it, and that is how I got my mark. Yes! Woo! Like a glove. Well, that's another 2 sections done. We got 1, 2, 3 more to go. So, not a ton of progress tonight, but that's what happens when you work a full-time job. You just chip away at it. So, we'll pick it up again tomorrow. The next day, we knocked out the remaining 3 sections of floor, and just check out how good this floor turned out. Super proud of this one. We got our floor out here, laid out on the floor. We got our floor laid out on the floor, and now I'm just gonna give it a quick sand, probably with a 120, 220 grit, something light, just on the edges, and get our first coat of mold and mildew resistant paint on it. First coat done. I'm gonna give this a little bit to dry and then I'll flip them. I gotta do the edges and then the other side, and it'll be ready to install. We are back with a wider lens. Look at this background. See, look how not far you have to hold.
Not here.
Yeah. Look at that background. This is background. I flipped everything over and stood it up on extra wood blocks just so I can go ahead and get the edges here. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put on the second coat on the other side.
It's floor day! Again! Today we are gluing our floors down. We are going to be using liquid nails again on the foam area that's touching the wood, and then we have Gorilla wood glue for where we have wood on wood. So after you cut all your plywood out, we recommend driving it around for a little bit with just a couple screws to hold the floor in place, see what's squeaking. We found this area that's squeaking, so we're gonna shave off a little bit of our foam insulation. If it's too tight, it'll squeak against the side of the van.
It's no bueno. Much better. Nothing. Super solid. Really happy with that. Maya says van building is exhausting, huh?
Are you tired?
She also said we're not doing it right.
This right here is gonna be her seat all day while we work.
Oh yeah, right there.
She's gonna sit there and look out of the windows and watch the people.
You see this right here? It'll never look this nice again.
Now on to the important stuff. How much did it cost and how long did it take?
I don't know if you've checked the price of plywood recently, but that stuff's expensive. We spent $334 on this project for everything you saw in this video.
How long did it take? The subfloor is not a quick task. It took us 22 and a half hours between all the cutting the foam and the boards and painting and screwing everything in, cutting things multiple times until they fit perfectly.
Everything takes longer than you think it will.
But boy, does it look good.
And a few important things to note about our subfloor is that we drilled no additional holes into the van, so there's no extra holes in the floor holding our subfloor to the van. And it does not squeak. Very important. We've been walking around on it for weeks now, and it's really solid, no squeaks, and we couldn't be happier with it.
Well, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. We hope you at least got some entertainment out of this, if not some educational tips to build your own camper van.
And if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. We'd be happy to help. Definitely gonna want background music over this.
Huh?
That's a terrible noise.
Say the cheers.
Do they take into account the time to take it back? I can't see these polarizations, that's just
I know.
black.